And today I went ahead and pulled the old Chevy 3100 pickup in here because I've been having a little bit of transmission issues with it. It doesn't seem to want to come out of low gear, and I'm pretty sure it's because of a sticky valve body on the transmission. So I decided to go ahead and pull that valve body off, and while doing so, I was going to go ahead and install a B&M shift improver kit. So I thought there might be some guys and gals out there that hadn't ever put one of those in before and might want to see how that's done. So we'll go ahead and get started on that and see where we end up.
Alright, well now that we got this old 3100 jacked up, we can get under here and take a look at what we have going on here. When we put this truck together, we used the rear steer Camaro Nova subframe on it. And with those, they have this more of a squared off boxed in cross member. So the only bad thing about those is you can't get to these back transmission pan bolts without removing that cross member there. So we're going to have to go ahead and undo that cross member, slide it back, and then allow the old transmission just to kind of set loose on the back of this cross member here while we pull these pan bolts out. But another thing, very few of them I've seen of these 350 turbo pans have a factory drain plug right here, which would actually be pretty nice. But unfortunately, this one doesn't have it. So after we get that transmission cross member moved back and these pan bolts, we'll have to drop this pan down. But the only way to do it is with the oil and everything in it. So usually it's kind of a messy job. So I think before we put it all back together, we'll go ahead and end up putting us in a drain plug in there in case we have to do this again. So we'll get started on removing this cross member and this pan here, and we'll see where we end up.
Alright, well now that we got that cross member moved back and the pan pulled off of this transmission here, it's time to go ahead and start pulling off this valve body here. So once you do that, you're going to continue to leak quite a little bit of oil, so it's kind of good to have a pretty good sized pan laying down underneath here and have some rags and paper towels on hand. There's not really any clean way of doing this. The only thing that would have been nicer is if we would have had one of them drain plugs. You could have at least drained the oil out and let it kind of sit for a couple hours. That would have got some of it out. But as soon as this valve body's off, it's literally going to start leaking again, quite a little bit of fluid that's left up in the transmission there. So we'll go ahead and start pulling this valve body off and take a look at it after that. Alright, well we got the valve body pulled out of the old 3100 here, sitting in the back of it. And as you can see here, it's got these valves here that run inside this valve body, and there's like about 5 of them along the way here. And it's what I'm thinking is wrong with it is one of them is kind of hung up, and because if they get some debris or something build up in there and get kind of hung up, it'll kind of keep your transmission from shifting into gears or hold it in one gear, and it'll do all kinds of weird stuff. So we're going to take them valves out, lay them out, and clean this up really good and get that part of it put together. And we're also going to go ahead and install a B&M shift improver kit after we get that done. But I thought I'd go ahead and show people here. This is the separator plate. That was the last piece that came out. It's in between the valve body and the transmission case itself. And in case you're doing one of these and you want to know if it's already had a shift improver kit in it or not, the best way that I've found to tell is if all these little check balls, there's 4 of them on a stock 350 turbo GM transmission. And if it's had a shift improver kit, at least a B&M, you will only use 2 of those check balls or 1 of them, depending on how you assemble it. So, and they're not, there's nothing fancy about them. They're just little plastic balls. But when you pull that out, you want to make sure that you kind of keep this in the upright position when you drop it straight down. That way you don't lose those little plastic balls, because they're kind of hard to keep track of there. So we're going to go ahead and start taking this valve body apart here and get her cleaned up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start taking these valves out of this valve body here. So the best way to do that, or the only way to do that, is if you look at it on this side, I go ahead and usually take this out and lay it out of the way. But you can see them sticking out right here. And if you look on the top side of this valve body, you'll see those small holes where there's like a little pin setting up in there. So if you turn it over upside down and apply pressure, push this spring back into the valve body there a little bit, this actual pin is supposed to kind of fall out. You kind of let gravity feed it out. So we'll flip it over here. See if we can get it to cooperate with us here a little bit. Sometimes they can be kind of sticky. Oh, there we go. There's one. And see, now you can already tell this valve here is kind of tight. I just shoved it in and it should spring back to me, and it's not. So that's almost some evidence that that might be what's wrong with this thing. Alright, well, we got that all pulled apart here, and I went ahead and laid these out in reference to how they go in that valve body there. So, and then once you get them apart, there's actually secondary little valves that goes inside there, along with like a little spring in there. So we'll go ahead and get these all cleaned up, clean up that valve body, get everything blowed out and good and everything, and then we'll get her all back together and start putting that shift kit in. Alright, well, we got that valve body cleaned up here. Got all the valves put back into place. Like I said, they kind of snap back in and out like they should here. I know before we took it apart, a couple of these were really stiff and sticky, so I think that's probably what our problem was. We didn't end up taking, this is the accumulator here, and there's a big heavy spring underneath of it. I didn't end up taking it out. I just kind of pushed it up and down there, and it feels like the springs, should be good, not broke or anything. And the only other valve that I didn't end up taking out was the one for the passing gear, which is right here. And it seems to, function in and out just like it should here. And the main reason I didn't take it out is just because I simply just forgot it, but it does feel free. I don't think there's any problem there. So now we're going to go ahead and start getting our B&M Shift Improver kit set up here. This one here I've had for quite a few years, hanging on the wall over there. You can tell that the box is kind of faded on it and everything. I've been saving it for a rainy day, and since it clouded up pretty good here, we're going to go ahead and get it put in. But these kits are really pretty good. I've used quite a few of them over the years. I looked them up on eBay. They're about 60 bucks now. When I used to get them years ago, they were like 30. But the instructions that come in these, you know, they have like a instruction book, and the directions and stuff in these are really good. You know, a lot of times you get stuff and, you know, it's kind of hard to follow what they're trying to tell you to do here. But on this, they're really a pretty good kit to get. And there isn't a whole lot to these. But the reason I put these in, I put them in quite a few of them that, you know, you have those transmissions that just kind of seem like they just barely kind of slide in between gears. You know, like real slow about going between first and second and drive. On these, you can set them up two ways. It's got a street and strip and in an RV setting. I did the RV setting once. It wasn't near as positive as the street and strip. You know, it's a little bit slower in between, you know, first and second and drive compared to the street and strip setup. So I always kind of like putting them on the street and strip. I mean, you know you're there. I mean, it just bangs them right in between the gears there. So and basically all you have to do, you get in the instruction kit here. It comes with a little drill bit here, so you're going to have to drill this separator plate in order to set it however you're wanting to go. If you're the street and strip, you have to drill, I believe it's 2 holes. You enlarge a couple of these holes here, and if it's for the RV setting, you just need to drill, I think it's one hole, and then you put in the check balls that we showed earlier. You had 4 in the factory setting. With the street and strip one, I believe there's only 1 ball, I think you put in, or 2. I'll have to read the instructions here, you know, to make sure I do it right here. But basically, you're going to eliminate a couple of those check balls there to kind of increase the flow of fluid through this valve body. So we'll go ahead and get this set up the way we want it and try to get this valve body put back in. Got that shift kit installed here and the transmission filter put back on. So now we're going to go ahead and install a drain plug in the oil pan and get that put on there, and we'll have this project pretty well wrapped up. Well, here's a look at that 350 turbo oil pan here. And as you can see, it's got kind of this little flat area right here. That's where the factory would put the drain plug on them if they were equipped with that. I haven't seen too many that were, but you know, if you're wanting to put a drain plug in one, I believe B&M sells like a bolt-in plug kit you can put in these. But what I usually do is I just go to the hardware store and get like a pipe coupling, like a black pipe coupling, 3/8 usually, with a pipe plug. And if you have access to a welder, what I usually do is just go ahead and just drill a little hole in there, and then get that in there, cut off a little bit of excess on that, and weld that in. So that's what we're going to do on this one. We'll go ahead and get started and see if we can get that wrapped up real quick. Well, now that we got that drain plug put in and cross member bolted back into place, pan back on, we're going to go ahead and get her filled with fluid and drop back down on the ground, and then take her for a spin and see if she's got any more than low and reverse. Alright, well, we got the old 3100 filled up with fluid here, and I think we're going to go ahead and take her for a test drive here to see if we've either gained, lost, or stayed the same on the amount of gears that we got. Before we only had low and reverse, so let's hope that she improved and she runs through all three of them. So we'll get her fired up and backed out of the shop. Ultimate test. We're going to see if she goes through all the gears. like to go ahead and thank everybody who's been watching and following along with me on all these videos here. And if you're new, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button if you found any of this stuff useful or entertaining in any ways. And now that we got the old 3100 going, my daily driver, we can go ahead and jump back on and try to hurry up and pump a video out real quick on the old goose. So until next time, take care and stay safe.